everyone, and welcome to Scott C. Astrophotography channel. Tonight we are going to be doing part 2 of the Dwarf 2 versus Seestar imaging test. Tonight we will be imaging nebulas. The first video that we did, we imaged a galaxy, the M33 or Triangulum Galaxy, but tonight we're going to be focusing on two nebulas, the Elephant Trunk Nebula and the Wizard Nebula. So let's go ahead and get started with this setup. As you can see, we have the Dwarf 2 polar aligned, because many people had said before that it wasn't really fair to put the Dwarf 2 up against the Seestar without Dwarf 2 actually being polar aligned. So for those who said that, I had the Dwarf 2 polar aligned for you all here this time. Seestar obviously cannot be polar aligned, but it will have everything leveled and put on exactly the way it's supposed to be. Again, both of these we're going to let run pretty much throughout the entire night. For the first target, the Elephant Trunk Nebula, and then tomorrow night we will take it out one more time and do the Wizard Nebula. So let's go ahead and get started with the Seestar S50 setup. First things first, we want to turn on this anti-dew heater, which we do have on. So let's go ahead and do our stargazing. Open this up. Let's go ahead and find the Elephant Trunk Nebula. Should be over here somewhere. North. Okay, where's north? Alright, there it is. Should be right here. Zoom into here, and it should be right there. The star that we're going to center on is this one here. And if it is not centered properly, we will have to go and recenter it. So let's click here to our go-to.
Finding object.
As you heard, it said it is finding object. Now, while it does the object find, there's some things that I do want to clear up from the last video. First of those things being is why to polar align the Dwarf 2. The reason you polar align the Dwarf 2 is to eliminate the field rotation, which you could have seen in the first video where there was a lot of field rotation within Dwarf 2 and Seestar S50 image. ZWO has said that they will start looking into doing equatorial mode. Possibly in the future we might be able to see that as a function for those who have a strong tripod that can do a strong angle like the Dwarf 2 has, as you can see here. Other people have said that the Dwarf 2 does not have a very stable tracking when it is polar aligned. I do want to clarify, it does have a very strong base, so it will track properly. As you can see, it said object is centered. Obviously, we're going to do our autofocus on this before we do anything else. Continuing, while it continues to autofocus, Dwarf 2 has many different filters that it can put on. Seestar doesn't. It just has a solar filter and the built-in light pollution filter, but they may add more accessories for us in the future. I'm trying to think of some other stuff other people have said. In regards to the shooting time, they don't really have a function on Seestar quite yet that will automatically shut off. However, the Dwarf 2 does, so that is a benefit for the Dwarf 2 most definitely. You can set the amount of exposures you want to take with Dwarf 2, however you cannot with Seestar S50 quite yet. But I'm sure that is a function they're going to add into the future. So let's allow this to finish autofocusing, and then once that is done, we will center it properly and start shooting on here. And we also set up the Dwarf 2 as well. Okay, autofocus is complete, so let's put this in correctly. I believe it might have actually gone to the proper place. Yes, it did. Okay, so now we can go and set up the Dwarf 2. Dwarf Lab is turned on. All we have to do is connect and get it all set up. Now, there are some things I want to clarify in regards to Dwarf 2. Again, Dwarf 2 is going to be getting a new app layout, so it will be having much more go-to options in the future. Right now, it doesn't have very many, but in the future, it should be getting more than 500, as well as a Sky Atlas type thing like the Seestar S50 app does. It also should be getting a community type thing based on what I've heard from the developers. It should be getting a community type thing based on kind of like what the Seestar S50 has as well in the app. So let's go ahead and do our calibration. Obviously, we need to switch to Astro mode. Let's put this up so it can see properly. Okay, let's allow this to calibrate before we put our filter adapter on. We click Feature, Calibration. For this video, we are not going to be using the 1x1 beta binning because that is still currently in beta testing, and I don't really want to use that at the moment. The nice thing about Dwarf Lab is that they do have constantly features coming out, brand new, for users to test out, so that is very nice. It appears that we might have made a mistake in going with some trees. Let me hit the stop go to. Try that again. Cancel that. Okay. Let's try this again. Let's go up a bit more. we go. Okay, now let's try calibration again. As I was saying before, in this video we will not be using the 1x1 binning because that is still currently under beta testing and I don't really want to use any beta features on here. Just know that the Dwarf 2 still has a whole lot left to unpack and reveal for the software and the programming of the app. The engineers at Dwarf Lab are still currently working very hard to make their product much better. But you can say the same thing for Seestar S50, as we will have new features rolling out for that very soon. So make sure you stay tuned on the development of both of these telescopes. Now, calibration of this should be complete in just a moment. As you can see, it says calibration success. So let's just slap this filter on here real quick. Okay, that is now on. Let's go ahead and move to the Stellarium app to get the coordinates for the Elephant's Trunk Nebula. Alright, we have the coordinates in. Let's allow it to go to. I might have to refocus because the stars do look a little bit blurry, but we'll check that in just a minute. The go-to plate solving is pretty neat, pretty simple. It is pretty much accurate 99% of the time, but sometimes if the plate solving is not done correctly, it will not work right. But as you can see, it does do the go-to perfectly fine when it is polar aligned, so that's not something you have to worry about very much. I believe it has completed the go-to. Let's check the focus here. As you can see, it's very blurry, so let's try to focus that. Okay, it appears that the stars are as sharp as they're gonna get. So let's take my phone and my tablet both inside, allow this to run pretty much, again, almost the entire night, and then we will come back tomorrow night and start working on the next astrophotography project, which will in fact be the Wizard Nebula. So make sure you stay tuned for the video. Alright, so after actually thoroughly reviewing last night's astrophotography test, I do realize that there are some things that need to be adjusted. The polar alignment that I had tried to make last night, in fact, was not aligned at the correct star. So as you can see, there was a lot of actually field rotation in our two images. Here's our two images here. As you can see, the Dwarf 2 clearly does have a lot of field rotation due to the fact that I polar aligned wrong. And the Seestar S50 does have its normal amount of field rotation. Again, I left these both out until about 6 o'clock in the morning, so they had plenty of exposure time. As you can see, there's plenty of detail in the Seestar image and a lot of detail in a much larger image with the Dwarf 2 telescope that could be pulled out in post-processing. So tonight we're actually going to try new things. We're going to be doing the Wizard Nebula, and then we're also going to give it a shot at a surprise, the Crab Nebula. So again, we're going to allow it to run through those two, pretty much the same process as last night, but tonight. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that in regards to Seestar, when you're setting it up, I highly recommend that when you have your Seestar turned on, when you're trying to set it up, what you should do is you should point the Seestar S50 pretty much at the direction where your deep sky object is going to be located in the sky. That way, it doesn't eventually run out of space to turn, because the Seestar S50 can only turn a certain amount before it has to stop. Just like the Dwarf 2, the Dwarf 2 also has a certain amount until it needs to stop, but thankfully, thankfully that's not really that much of an issue with the Dwarf 2 when it comes to polar alignment. I do need to level my Seestar S50, so I'm going to level that. I'm going to calibrate the Dwarf 2 and the Seestar S50, and we will start shooting the Wizard Nebula, and then after that we will move on to the Crab Nebula. Again, one more thing, make sure that you have your Dwarf 2 and Seestar S50 charging if you plan on leaving it out overnight. The Seestar S50 only has a 6-hour battery life, but it does run out quite quickly, and so does the Dwarf 2. But the Dwarf 2 does have a replaceable battery pack, so that's nice. And the Seestar S50, actually, I have heard that it does have a replaceable battery as well. I guess you just have to order that separate though. So let me level this, and then we will get started with the shooting. Alright, it is now time for our processing session on PC. As you can see, we have our 3 different files on here from both Dwarf 2 and the Seestar S50. Before we actually get into the actual processing session, there's a couple things that we want to look at. Obviously, we do want to see the images before they're processed at all. So let's open up the Elephant Trunk Nebula, since that was the first one from Seestar. Alright, so here is our Elephant Trunk Nebula, shot from Seestar. As you can see, it's quite blurry on PC when it's not stacked properly. It has a good amount of detail, but obviously there's a whole lot of field rotation. It's not very much of a workable image. I'm going to have to cut out both these corners here in order to get rid of all the field rotation noise in the corners. However, in Dwarf 2, as I told you, I really messed up my polar alignment, so because of the mess up polar alignment, you do see a lot of field rotation, but there is still a lot of workable image here, and you can see the Elephant Trunk Nebula right here on this edge, along with the rest of the nebula right here in the center. So we're going to see what we can do with that. Let's close out of here. Next we have the Wizard Nebula. As I told you, I did fix the polar alignment to be as it properly is, and here's a good example to show why polar alignment is so important. You open this up, and you see how much of this image is going to have to be cut off here. These 2 corners are going to have to be completely removed in order to get rid of that field rotation noise. However, when it is properly polar aligned, as you can see, the Dwarf 2 was properly polar aligned and everything stacked fine. This is what it looks like. You don't see very much field rotation noise. You just see a little bit of area that needs to be cut off, because obviously my polar alignment wasn't perfect. It was just a look, just a check. So it wasn't exactly perfect as it should have been, but as you can see, we do have so much more of a workable image. So that's definitely a +1 for the Dwarf 2. The fact that it is able to polar align at this moment. You can basically put it in equatorial mode instead of having it in the azimuth, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, mode. So closing out of that, we can now see the M1, the Crab Nebula. As you can see, there's honestly not a lot of field rotation. We didn't get a lot of exposure time, and it wasn't too close to the North Pole, so it didn't have to rotate too much, so that's good. Then we have our Dwarf 2 image. Again, I messed up my polar alignment on this one again, but either way, we do have a lot of workable image here. The ZWO dual band filter that I use on Dwarf 2 appears to leave a kind of like coma around the stars here. As you can see, these are not comets. It would be cool if they were comets, but they are not comets. That's just kind of blown out stars. So let's go ahead and get started with the processing of these. First things first, I'm going to open up the Google Chrome, open up Fit Scrubber, because we are going to be using that as always. This is always a very handy tool. You can never go wrong with it. Go ahead and close out of these. You don't need to see the notifications. All right. So first things first, we're going to run through the Elephant Trunk Nebula on Seestar. What I would like to do is I would like to take this and run it through Fit Scrubber first, because Fit Scrubber actually does make a big difference in regards to the detail you're able to pull out with Seestar data. Unlike with Dwarf 2, I noticed with the Dwarf 2 data, it kind of just makes it look a little bit splotchy, but sometimes it can do a good job. So we're just going to test it out either way. I'm going to open this several times, actually, just Fit Scrubber, and we're going to use that several times on these different objects. So let's try it. Fit Scrubber, there you go. Fit Scrubber again. All right, and obviously we're also going to see what we can do just in serial, to see what we can pull out with the data without having to use artificial intelligence, which is basically what Fit Scrubber is. So let's go ahead and get started with that first. Elephant Trunk Nebula. We're going to get started with the processing on this one in serial. Open that up. Close out of this again. Software update. Okay. Apparently serial does have a new software update, but we're not going to do that. It's not really necessary at the moment, so hit OK here. And let's start with the processing here. So first things first, obviously switch to auto stretch, unlink the image. And you can follow along with this step by step if you want. Let's go through our background extraction, generate. Obviously, as you can see, it gets a lot of that field rotation noise. We don't want that, so we do have to rotate that. Let's see, geometry. Rotate and crop. Just like this.
We'll just look for where it ends. Appears to end right there, so we should be fine like that. Hit apply, hit close, image processing, background extraction, and now we extracted background. As you can see, it gets a lot of the nebulosity there, so let's kind of remove this grid tolerance. Alright, that should be fine. Compute background, apply. It did leave that ugly, splotchy looking thing that I really don't like. So let's go back. Try that again. Background extraction. Add dithering. Generate. Compute background. Apply. Okay, so something I did notice helps a lot. If you want to do this correctly, if you don't want to have those splotchy thing, I did just now learn this just by playing around with it. You have to do add dithering in order to get rid of all those weird splotches in it, and it does a very good job at that. So just a tip of advice, make sure you use add dithering if you don't want to have those weird little lines in it. Okay, so let's do our color calibration now. Photometric. As you can see, it already has the coordinates in here, so that's very handy. Okay, and allow it to do the photometric color calibration and probably rotate it. Now that's done. Let's save that just like this. Now we go to remove green noise, hit apply, close, save it again, and now we can run this through Fit Scrubber. So let's just back out of here, move this over, and open this up through Fit Scrubber. And while this runs through Fit Scrubber, we will also be working on it in serial. So open, just allow it to do that, and we're not going to do any star removal or anything on it on this file, because honestly, with this nebula, as you can see, it's very dim. I don't really see the need to remove the stars because the stars actually look very nice in it, and I don't think we need to do any processing apart from that. So once that's done uploading, we will hit the start button and allow that to run. Now while that runs, let's start with the post-processing in here. Let's switch to linear mode because we now have to do our auto stretch on this. Image processing, generalized hyperbolic stretch, and we bump this up to 100. As you can see, our histogram is kind of all over the place. But let's try to find the main symmetry point over here. Alright, there it is. Try to drag this around until we have something workable. Hit apply here, and then bring up our black point, sorry. Apply, bring it up a little bit more. After we switch this back to 1. Select this nebulosity here. Set that as a symmetry point. Bring this up. Obviously, there's a lot of noise here. Let's bring it up a little bit more. Lower it back down. Apply. And then bring up the black point again. Obviously, we don't want to have bring the black point up too much because that can damage our image with noise. So we're just going to leave it about here. So that's fine. Hit apply. Hit close. Next, let's go to our color saturation. No, color calibration. That's what we wanted to do. Color calibration here. It's a very noisy image, as you can see. Use current image background neutralization and neutralized it very well. And we still have this color here. Select this area. Use current selection. Apply. Now that can sometimes mess it up. So we're just going to check this. It did very much mess it up. Let's go back and just leave it with the neutralized background. Switch it back to here. Let's save this as it is. Go to color saturation. Bring up that. Obviously, keep the background factor up. Apply. Image processing. Again. Color saturation. Drag this up. Apply. And honestly, we can do it one more time. It's not too bright, not too over saturated. So just leave that up. Apply again. And then we will save this. Now let's try to run it through a noise reduction. Apply that, and there we go. It appears that it kind of blurred it too much, so I don't want it to do that strongly. So we can actually change that noise reduction and slower down to 0.68 and hit apply again. Still not 100% pleased with that, so we're gonna go back one more time and lower it down a bit more. All right, noise reduction, pretty much negative, not negative, but 0.37. Apply, and it is done. That does look nice. Let's save it like that. I'm happy with how that looks. Now let's go to Fit Scrubber. That should be done. And here is our image in Fit Scrubber. So let's save this as a fits file. It's downloading now. Let's close out of here and save this as a unique file. And we can just take a look at that real quick. Let me just close this, exit, elephant trunk. There it is. Here is our saved fits file. As you can see, it has a lot of detail. I very much like the detail. I should have run it through a star deconvolution to get rid of these pixels around the stars, but it's okay as it is. Honestly, I'm pretty much happy with how this looks from the Seestar S50. Again, this is only about an hour and a half of exposure, since it does automatically reject the frames. Unlike Dwarf 2, Dwarf 2 will just add everything in and you can sort through them later, which I do wish that Seestar would do. Eventually it is going to do that. We're just waiting for the new update for us to be able to save our individual fits files. So again, that's very nice. Let's close out of here. Go to our downloads and open up the other fits file, which is right here. Open that up in Serial. Yes, open with. Alright, and we will go through a workflow with this. Okay, open this up, and let's get started with it. Now, let's do our generalized hyperbolic stretch. Just like last time, we're going to bump it up to 100. As you can see, it kind of evens out the histogram a lot more when you run it through Fit Scrubber. I guess it gets rid of that extra noise that you don't want, and that pretty much fixes everything up the way it should be. And move this back to there. Click here, it should be alright. Start bumping it up. Now obviously we don't want to overexpose it, so let's leave it at that. Apply and bring up the black noise. Black point, again, I keep saying that. Alright, leave it like this. Looks nice. Alright, hit apply, close, and then we go to our color calibration. Let's kind of neutralize the background here. There we go, apply. And then we go to our color saturation, bring up the color. Obviously, it's a very dim nebula, so you can't overexpose it. It'll make it look like it has a lot of hot pixels in it, which would mess it up. So let's do a little bit more saturation, and that should pretty much be it as far as what we can do. Bring that up, apply, and save as a unique file. So we want to set the home directory into our downloads. No, into our desktop elephant trunk, and save it here. Let's save that now as a unique file so we can look at them side by side. Exit that. Here, that is right here. Here's the one shot with Serial. As you can see, it has a lot of noise, which is quite unfortunate. And here it is with the Fit Scrubber already in place. It gets rid of a lot of the noise. It brings out more of the background dark nebula, as you can see. The stars look cleaner. The nebula looks cleaner. I do say that running through Fit Scrubber was a good idea on that one. But either way, even without the Fit Scrubber, it does look very nice for an hour and a half of exposure. Let's close out of this now. And let's see what the Dwarf 2 was able to do in regards to the elephant trunk. Let's open up Serial. And we're going to allow that to stack. And while that stacks, we are going to go ahead and run through the M1 with the Seestar data. Let's go ahead and hit open. No, not open, sorry. We're going to set our home directory into our desktop. Let's see, elephant trunk, and open. Let's allow it to run through the dark bias flats, OC preprocessing. Let's allow that to run. And while that runs, we will start working on our workflow with the Seestar data for the... No, let's do the Wizard Nebula first, since that was actually before that. Let's see here. Wizard Nebula Seestar. Actually had two. So we do have to open with Serial. I want to see what we can do, if it's possible to stack the two pre-stacked fits files. Maybe to bring out some extra detail, because I was able to run it through twice. Let me see. Set it to home. Desktop. And then, let's see. I think it was NDC 7331, but let me check. Open. Close that. No, it should have just been Wizard Nebula, so let me try that again. Alright, home, and then just Wizard Nebula, I guess. Desktop. There it is. Wizard Nebula Seestar open. Okay, sorry about the delay. Now let's go ahead and just stack these dark bias flats. It'll be very quick. Literally, it's just two exposures. See if it even works. Let's open it. Result.fit, and see if this works right. All right, auto stretch, unlink it, and here is our stacked image. It does look very nice. However, there's a lot of field rotation. Unfortunately, let's try to get rid of as much of that as possible. Geometry, first things first, obviously rotate and crop. It's like this should be okay, I believe. And don't crop, actually. Apply that. It's possible. There we go. And now we can just crop it straight like this, so we don't lose too much of our image. There we go, we crop that. And this is our workable image. So now let's save this, just like that. Run it through our background extraction, generate that. I will add dither again, compute background. Apply. As you can see, it kind of dims the nebula a little bit, but that's alright, I think. Next thing is our remove green noise. Apply that. Hit close. Wow. That's okay. I don't really like how it looks with green noise removed, honestly. So we're going to leave it like that. Let's go to our color calibration, photometric, and apply. Alright, that is complete. Let's hit close. And now let's start running through the rest of our process. First things first, what I'm going to do is I am going to get rid of the stars here so we can work on that nebula. Starting at star removal, pre-stretch, and execute. Now, probably this one is done stacking now. We can check that. No, it is still stacking. So once that is done, we will continue working on this. Running StarNet is almost complete. Let's see. I can close out of this because we already finished that. Minimize that, and running StarNet again, it's almost complete. It's now done, and here is our nebula. It's a lot of detail on it already. Honestly, I'm quite happy with how it looks. Let's do our image processing, generalized hyperbolic stretch. We need to put this into linear mode. That's already beautiful, honestly. I wish we didn't even have to do anything to this, but it doesn't save like that, unfortunately. Just click here, start dragging it up. Or maybe it already did save like that. Maybe this is just our image. Just usually it doesn't do stuff like this. Oh. Okay. I'm not really sure what Serial is doing right now. Maybe it's having a little bug issue. But we're just gonna kind of leave it like that. Actually, I like how it looks. Hit close, save, color saturation. Maybe we could bring it up. No, it's too much. Save it like that. Apply, and then. Yeah, just save it. Let's bring our stars back in. Star processing, star recomposition, starless result, and star mask. Let's bring this up. Black point. I guess it didn't stretch right. Bring this up some more. Black point again. It's a bit too much. Too much black point. Not really sure what was going on with that. Perhaps it was just an issue in regards to StarNet. Maybe that had a little bug there. We'll just bump this up a little. Oof, that's too much. As you can see, it's kind of a trial and error type thing here. Alright, that looks good as is. We're going to hit apply there. And let's bring our stars back in now. There we go. Let's hit apply here, hit close. And here is our finished Wizard Nebula image. Now I would like to see perhaps if we could run it through FitScrubber just like the other one. So let's save this as a unique file in here. Run it through FitScrubber, and while FitScrubber is running, we will process our elephant trunk and Serial with Dwarf 2 data. So open this up. Pictures, no, desktop. Okay, Wizard. Let's find that. Wizard Nebula, result.fit. Maybe this will work. Open and allow that to happen. If that doesn't work, perhaps we can just use one of the fits files that were stacked. Let's go to lights and just use this one here. Open. Remove green tint and allow everything else to run. All right, let's close out of here. Rejection stacking is complete on the Elephant Trunk Nebula, so let's open that. Result.fit, open, and switch it to auto stretch. Unlink our image. And here is our elephant trunk. Now, as you can see, it did get rid of pretty much all field rotation. I'm not sure if perhaps that was an automatic crop or what happened here. But it's quite convenient that it already did that. Let me just crop out the little edges here to get rid of the rest of it. Just like that. Alright, now we can start working on our image. Our first thing we're going to do is our background extraction. Just generate that. We want to reduce that grid tolerance and bump up the samples. Generate that. Appears it's a bit too much. Remove that again. And bump up the samples one more time. Generate. Alright, let's compute the background. Apply. As you can see, it kind of made it a very noisy image. Our background extraction wasn't the best. I'm going to try it one more time. Let's see. Background extraction. Kind of bump down the samples. Generate. And this should be fine. Let's compute the background. Apply. And this is pretty much what we got. So let's try to work with this. First things first is our color calibration. Photometric color calibration. And let me see what NGC number this is. Let's see. Elephant Nebula. There you go. It is IC 1396. So let's type that in. IC 1396. Find. And then get the metadata from image. Click on this so it works correctly and hit OK. And it should work right. Alright, that is complete. Let's hit close here. Get rid of that green noise. Apply and close. Now let's start working on getting rid of the stars here. Let's save this. Image processing, star removal, and get rid of the stars. Pre-stretch linear image. Always execute and allow that to run. Let's go back to here. Oh, did it run through Fit Scrubber? I don't think it did. I think I forgot to actually. Oh, there we go. Alright, start that. And this should be working now. Let's upload fits file. Go back here to our desktop, Wizard Nebula, and result.fit. And see which one works best. Obviously, you can see it's queued, so it might take a while for it to actually work. I did notice that sometimes it's like there's a wait line in regards to that. But let's try our best to see if it works. So remove green tint, start. Okay, it is running everything correctly. You can close out of that. And here's our Elephant Trunk Nebula. Trunk's right there. It's kind of hard to see, honestly. Let's switch it to linear and start processing this. Bump that up to 100. As you can see, the symmetry, the histogram is not as wild as the Seestar is. I'm not really sure why it's like that. Let's bump this up. So you don't want to overdo it. So let's do that as much as possible, actually. Hit apply here and then bring down the black point. There's the trunk. It's very obvious. Apply that. Hit close. And then try to... We'll try to bring up the color saturation, but I feel like it's going to saturate the entire background, unfortunately. Because of how much noise there is. Let's see, use current selection, background neutralization, and close that. Okay, it helped a little bit with the extra noise. You can see the Elephant Trunk Nebula much more clear. I will say, in regards to Dwarf 2, if you have it polar aligned, it's so great because you can see so much more of the nebulosity here. This whole area is the Elephant Trunk Nebula, but the Seestar only focuses on this part here. Just to give you an example, let's just crop it. This is the only part that the Seestar S50 actually is able to focus on with a small field of view. Obviously, there's not as much resolution, but of course, with more data, I'm sure that we could get more detail. But let's back out of here. I do think it's great that we're able to get so much more of the nebulosity in here with the Dwarf 2 image as opposed to the Seestar S50 image. But of course, at the cost of detail. But it depends on what everybody likes. If you like having more image and less detail, that's fine. If you like having, you know, more detail and a smaller image, that's also good. Of course, you could just stick with your giant rig, you know, the heavier the professional astrophotography setups, and you won't have very much issues in regards to field of view or the detail. It'll be good in regards to both of those. But this is pretty good, honestly, given the Dwarf 2. So let's save it. Go to our image processing and bring the stars back in. Star processing, StarNet star removal. No, sorry, StarNet star recomposition. There you go, and bring that in. Starless result, and star mask result. Open. Let's bring all the stars in. It's a bit too much. Gonna lower that down. And another thing that we can do at the end of this is actually just run it through starfixer.org. So hit apply here. Maybe we can bring the black point just a tiny bit more. Nah, it's overdoing it. Okay. Leave that the same. Hit close and save this as our unique file. There we go. Actually, I forgot to bring up saturation. Let me bring that up, see if it's possible. No, it's... As you can see, it kind of brings up the background color and the noise from that. So we kind of just want to leave that alone. It's a pretty good image for the Dwarf 2, honestly, because it's a very dead nebula for such a small field of view. Let me bump this up to here. Put that there. And that is not the right one. Let me put that back where that belongs. Okay. We'll just leave this here for now. Let me see if Fit Scrubber has finished running. It appears it has. Let's save this Fits file. And while that is saving, now we will start working on our M1 data. As you can see here, let's switch to our home directory. Let's see, desktop, M1, and we'll start stacking the Dwarf 2. It already stacked? Looks like. No. Desktop, M1. There we go. Lights. Okay. Let's start stacking this. Switches to scripts. OC pre-processing without dark bodies or flats. No, that did not work. Let me close out of here. Maybe there was an issue. M1. Lights. It should be working fine, so let me try it again. Home directory. M1. Desktop. Set that. Okay, open. And then run our script. There we go. Now it'll work fine. Now let's close out of that and start running through our other Wizard Nebula, the one that was stacked on Fit Scrubber. It will be in the downloads. Let me go there. To my downloads. Here's the other Fits file. Open that in Serial. Close out of here. Alright, Serial is now open. First things first, I'm going to crop this. Let's go to Geometry, Rotate and Crop. I will say it is nice that Seestar S50 data is very much compatible with Fit Scrubber. In regards to Dwarf 2 is not as compatible because it blurs everything, but Seestar definitely works good. So image processing, you do that. Let's go to our generalized hyperbolic stretch, kind of bump it up. Can set that, apply, bring out our black point again. Not too much, but just enough. Apply that. Now let's kind of try to do something with this color. Maybe we can add a little bit of different coloration in here. Select this background. Use current selection, background neutralization. And let's select this nebula. And hit apply. Oh, use current selection, apply. And allow that to finish. Close that. Maybe we can do some color saturation now. Bring this up. Background factor. I don't really like how I made it look, so we're actually going to go back here. Image processing, color saturation. Let's just bring that up now. Obviously, without doing it too much, apply. Honestly, I'm more happy with how my serial process only worked out, so we're just gonna close out of that and leave that alone, because here's my actual serial processed image. As you can see, there's a lot less noise. Just give it a second to open up. Yeah, there's not as much noise, and the nebula is very much defined. The color, I find it very beautiful the way it looks. So we're just going to leave it just like this, actually. Just close out of that. Let's see if this is done stacking. Almost. While that stacks, I guess we can go ahead and run through our M1 Seestar data. So I'll open that in Serial. Alright, hit OK here and start working with this now. Auto stretch, unlink the image. First things first is our background extraction. Generate that. Kind of lower down the grid tolerance. No, bump that up actually. And compute the background. See if it added the weird lines. Yes, it did. So we're going to do the dithering. Image processing, background extraction, add dither, and compute background. Oh, generate. Oops. Compute background now. Apply. And now we have our workable image. So let's save this and start working with it. If this will not lag, thank you. Okay, let's do our photometric color calibration. Everything set correctly. Hit OK. Alright, that is complete. Hit close. And now let's do our remove green noise. Apply. Hit close. Save that. Let's do our generalized hyperbolic stretch. I don't really want to mess with the stars, so we're going to switch it to linear and get rid of our stars here. Start at star removal. Restretch. Execute. Alright, StarNet is complete, and here's our beautiful Crab Nebula. As you can see, it's very nice and sharp. Let's go back to our original form and do our generalized hyperbolic stretch. Bump that up to 100. Let's click here. Start dragging this up. Apply that and bring our black point in. It did not apply. Let me go back. Okay, apply that. And then bring our black point in. That should be good. Let's hit close there. Now let's do our background neutralization. Get rid of that tint. Use color correction, background neutralization. Hit close. And now let's go ahead and add the color into this Crab Nebula. So our color saturation, bring it up. It's beautiful. I love the coloration here. Apply and do it again. Color saturation, bring it up. It's too much. Maybe the background, no. Okay, let's drag it down. Alright, just leave that alone now. Let's save it. Let's do our star recomposition. Star processing, star recomposition. There it goes. And start this. And then bring stars back in. Star mask. As you can see, I pretty much use the same process every single time, and it always works pretty good. Let's bring that up. Not too much, obviously. Leave it like that. Hit apply. Close and save this as our unique file. Very nice. All right, let's close out of that and go to our other serial program. Stacking failed. Please check log to fix your issues. Execution time. Skip the execution failed. All right, let me try that one more time. We're gonna try to let it run without darks, bias, or flats. See if it works out. Perhaps we didn't have enough storage space for it. Who knows, honestly. So let's close out of that. Let's just go ahead and review so far some of our files. I don't really need this anymore, or this, or this. So let's review these now. Let me take this out, put this up here. Okay, here's the Seestar image, open trunk. Just give me 1 second to fix everything. Actually, come to think of it, now that I'm looking back at it, I didn't even do the Wizard Nebula in Serial with the Dwarf 2 yet. So let's go back to Serial now and allow that to stack. The other one is pretty much almost done. As you can see, it's doing its global star registration. Just allow it to run through all of that. Computer normalization, and it is almost done. So let's just allow this to finish and let the other program open up. Alright, the other program is now open, so we're going to set our home directory to the Wizard Nebula to allow that to stack for Dwarf 2. Let's find that. Here it is, Wizard Nebula, and hit open, and let's just allow this to stack while we work on the other one. There we go, it's still doing the rejection stacking. Alright, stacking is now complete for this Dwarf 2 data, so let's open that. Result.fit. Open. This is for M1. Let's see what we got. So auto stretch, unlink it. It appears that it stacks amazingly. I think these stars look so cool. I wish it was an actual comet, but it's not. So let's just kind of crop these out because this is pretty much useless for us. Let's just crop this image. Let's do our star deconvolution. Just hit apply here. Run a blind deconvolution. Just allow that to give a run through. Let's see if this is almost done stacking. Not yet. Alright, it is now complete. Let's hit close here. And let's start working on our image. So let's first do our background extraction. Compute background. Compute background. Apply. Remove green noise. Apply. Close. Let's go to our color calibration, photometric color calibration, type in M1. Find. And let that run. That is complete. Hit close. Let's save it. And let's do our StarNet star removal. Pre-stretch. Hopefully you guys were able to follow the first process because I am going to switch back over to this one now. See if it is almost done. It's computing normalization, so it is almost complete. Let's see how long StarNet takes to load on here. I do have two serial programs working at the same time, so my computer is working at 100 miles an hour right now. There we go. That's done. Save it, and let's start doing our generalized hyperbolic stretch. Obviously, I need to put this in linear mode first. Bump this up to 100. To that. Select our symmetry point, and start dragging this up. All right, hit apply here. Now maybe we can bring it up a little bit more. It's a bit too much. Hit apply. Hit close. Obviously, the crab nebula is much smaller and there's not as much detail on it. Oops. Let me move this around. There's not as much detail on it as you can see, but it still has a nice coloration to it. And I do like that we have a much larger field of view. Again, that's the perks of having a Dwarf 2 telescope. So center that again, and let's start doing our color calibration. See, background, neutralization. There we go. Hit close here, and do our saturation. Bring that up. It's too much. Apply. And that's the best we can do with saturation. Unfortunately, we don't get to have all that nice blue and green coloration because it is a very small lens that we were using for the Dwarf 2. But it is able to pull out a lot of detail, honestly, just with this. So that's very nice. Save and do our StarNet star recomposition. Starless result. And our star mask result. Bring up our stretch factor. I'm not sure why it keeps bringing that back down. There you go. Apply that. Kind of bring up the black point if you can. Apply that again and start bringing the stars in. As many as we want. Apply. Close. And here's our image with Dwarf 2. Let's save this as a unique file now. And we're going to move this over to our other directory. Let's exit that. This is now also finished, so we are almost done here. Bring this down. It's nice right there. Let's close that out and bring this back up. All right. Let's now start working on our Wizard Nebula with the Dwarf 2. And this will be the last thing we work on for the day. Open up our result.fit file. Open. Auto stretch, unlink. And here's our Wizard Nebula. It's very big. And as you can see, there's literally no field rotation at all. Once again, one of the benefits of having it polar aligned. I wish that the Seestar was able to be polar aligned. Hopefully in the future it will be able to. But the fact that we can get this much field of view with the Dwarf 2 is very nice. So let's crop this. Crop that. There we go. Image processing. Let's do our background extraction. Generate that. Compute background. Apply. Remove the green noise. Apply. And our photometric color calibration. I do believe I have to look up what the deep sky object code, I guess you could say, is. Let me check that. Nope, not that. Google Chrome, Wizard Nebula. It is 7380. Okay. You see 7380. Enter. I open this. There we go. And we will just allow this to run real quick. Done. It's ready. So let's save that and let's get rid of the stars here. Obviously, star processing, star net, star removal, and pre-stretch, upsample, execute. Alright, StarNet is complete, so let's first switch this to linear mode. Let's see, generalized hyperbolic stretch, and start bringing this up. Let's bump this up to 100. I will say the histogram, again, is very nice and smooth. Start bringing this in. Not too much. Apply. Linear point, black point, sorry. Bring it up. Apply, close, and bring the saturation in. No, color calibration. Let's get rid of that tint in the background. Select this, use current selection, background neutralization, close, and then our color saturation. We don't want too much, so hit apply here. That should be alright. Save, and then we bring our stars back in. Star processing, star decomposition, starless result, and our star mask result. Open, bring this up. Here we go. Let's save this. There we go. Apply, close, and save as a unique file. And it is time now for our comparison. So let's close this. Bring in the Wizard Nebula back into the menu. There we go. All right. Let's now take a look at our processed files and unprocessed files. So here is our unprocessed file for the Wizard Nebula using Seestar S50. As you can see, there is a whole lot more nebulosity here. I think I might have overdone it a little bit in Serial. And here is our processed image for the Wizard Nebula. Again, I do think it looks very nice. I could have brought in the black factor, black point just a little bit more. But the detail is amazing. The fact that it's able to pull out this much detail with the ZWO Seestar S50 appears to maybe had a meteorite or an airplane or something come through here. As you see, there's this weird line here. But there's so much detail in this image that the Seestar S50 is able to pull out. I just think it's remarkable. I do very much appreciate the ability and the hard work that the ZWO team has put into the Seestar to get such a nice image from it. Now let's take a look at the Dwarf 2 image. As you can see, there's hardly any field rotation. However, in the Seestar S50 image, there was a good amount of field rotation. Again, its polar alignment helps a lot with that. There is a nice amount of detail. I appreciate how much more of a field of view we have here. You can even see a tiny little bit more nebulosity right here in that corner. Of course, the downside with the Dwarf 2, the ZWO dual band filter kind of leaves this weird halo thing around the stars, but if you ignore that, it's still alright. So let's close out of that. Here's our processed Dwarf 2 data. There's a lot of noise here. There's not as much detail on the Wizard Nebula. Of course, you can still see pretty much the entire shape of it. So it's still a very nice, beautiful image. You see a lot of this background here. It looks a little bit dusty. But the fact that we have such a wider field of view, I'll always appreciate. It allows you to pretty much immerse yourself more into the image. I would appreciate if we could have more of a field of view like that with Seestar S50. Perhaps we will get that when we get a kind of mosaic mode with Seestar. We will be able to get some very impressive images. So let's close out of that. Here's our processed Elephant Trunk Nebula. As you can see, so much detail in this image for just an hour and a half. This is a dark nebula here. So the fact that we're able to get this much detail with such a small lens, the Seestar S50 was able to pull out so much detail. I think it's very impressive. Again, Seestar S50 team did a very good job on the design of this device. The fact that it's able to pull out this much detail. Of course, with the issue of field rotation and such a small field of view, imagine if we had a wider field of view with this kind of detail in it. It would be absolutely mind-blowing, but that kind of telescope would probably be much more expensive. But I do think it's a very nice image, as you can see. I'm sure you feel the same. Now let's look at the unprocessed image with that. Even the unprocessed image, you do get to see a lot of the detail here. Of course, for some reason, when you try to transfer it to your computer, it all comes out kind of pixelated. But if you save it on your phone, it all is very nice and sharp. Let's close out of that. Here's our Dwarf 2 process data. You can see a lot of the detail here. You can see the elephant trunk is very, very obvious. But the thing I really appreciate about this is that you're able to see the entire nebula here. This is the entire nebula, this whole center of the image. You can see the coloration of it and the rest of the dark nebula kind of running through the rest of the image. I very much appreciate that. The fact that we can see the rest of the elephant trunk is very obvious. You know, it's not something you have to, look for it. You know, it's just this center right here. It's very noticeable. And the fact that we were able to, again, have this wide field of view with not very much field rotation and this much detail in the image, of course, Dwarf 2 did a good job in regards to detail with this image. So I very much appreciate what the Dwarf 2 was able to pull out with this one. Again, Seestar S50 image was very nice, honestly. I'm not really sure which one I can say I prefer. At the same time, I love the detail Seestar S50 was able to pull out, but I would also love having this much field of view. Again, ZWO Seestar S50 is eventually going to get a mosaic mode, is what I believe I've heard on their website. So when that happens, definitely the Seestar S50 might actually end up being able to trump the Dwarf 2 in regards to field of view. Let's check out our last target, the surprise target that it was, the Crab Nebula. I'm sorry, Dwarf 2. I know that it has a nice field of view and everything, as you see here. It is a much bigger field of view, but the Dwarf 2 cannot beat what the Seestar S50 was able to pull out with regards to the Crab Nebula here. You can see tints of blue, tints of green, tints of, darker coloration, the red, the pink. It's a beautiful image. I love how much detail it was able to pull out. Even though there wasn't very much field rotation noise, I hardly had to crop anything. This image came out very much impressive. I wasn't really sure what to expect in regards to this one, but this one absolutely blew my mind and was definitely far more than I expected from the Seestar S50. Again, this is about 2 hours of exposure time. Imagine what you could get with 4 or 5 hours of total integration time. That's what I look forward to when we can just save every single exposure and really just get as much detail as possible out of the Seestar image, because the Seestar definitely can do professional astrophotography. Those who say that it's just for digital viewing, think again, because this is able to pull out so much more than I would have thought. Because think about it. Look, here's the Seestar image, directly from Seestar. There's not very much coloration to it, but once you actually get into the processing, you really get to pull out the beautiful details of the nebula here. And then our Dwarf 2, of course, we have the wider field of view. I very much appreciate it. You can see more of the coloration here, but it looks like we lost it kind of in the post-processing here in serial. Perhaps if we had ran it through FitScrubber, we would have been able to get it a little bit more, but we do have the red coloration here. We kind of just lost the blue coloration that I would have liked to see a little bit more of. But what do you guys think? Do you think Seestar S50 is better or Dwarf 2 is better? It really depends on what you like, whether you want more of the field of view or if you want, more detail, or even both. Once we get the mosaic mode in Seestar S50, just let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm very happy with the results we were able to get from both of these telescopes, but again, it is up for you guys in the audience to decide. If you're interested in purchasing the Seestar S50 or the Dwarf 2, I have the links down in the description. I very much hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe. It definitely, it supports out the channel, and showing your support helps me out a lot too, knowing that you guys enjoy the content, because honestly, this takes a really long time to even make. I do have some stuff planned in the future. I do plan on doing a live stream for those who are interested, those who are still watching the video right now. Now you know about it. I will be doing a live stream, basically revealing what the future of the channel is going to be, the content I plan on creating, and stuff I want to do in the future. Also, I will answer some questions in regards to Dwarf 2 and Seestar S50 to those who are interested. Another thing, I do plan on doing a very long video. It's going to take me several weeks to finish, so please don't rush it. I cannot rush this video. I'm going to be doing 20 different targets in one video with the Seestar S50 alone. So make sure you keep an eye out for that one. It should come out in November or December because it's going to take a long time for me to make it. Think about it. I need 20 clear nights. So yeah, it's going to take a long time to make. So again, thank you very much for watching the video. I really appreciate your watch time. You know, the fact that you're able to come here and watch the content that I'm creating, it does mean a lot to me. So does any likes or subscribes or even donations if you want to make, because I am trying to eventually get a good, large professional rig. That's really what I'm working for right now. So please leave a like and subscribe. I really hope you enjoy the video and have a great night, and I wish you all clear skies.